Verbally Effective with Ina Esco is an interview-style podcast that intersects art, culture, politics, and entertainment with a Memphis focus. With producer Sana Marie. Each week, I'm joined by a featured guest with roots in Memphis. Verbally Effective delves into each guest's personal journey to uncover the incredible stories fueling their purpose, the highs and lows of their pursuits, and how through their passion, they are moving the culture forward. Be sure to follow Verbally Effective and Ina Esco on Instagram. Also, download the Verbally Effective podcast on SoundCloud, iTunes, and Google Play Music. Don't forget to check out the website and submit to be a guest at verballyeffective.com. Greetings, and welcome to another edition of the Verbally Effective podcast. You know, this is the pod that intersects art, culture, politics, and entertainment with a Memphis focus. Of course, I am your host, your double E, Ina Esco. I want to thank you guys for joining me today. And, you know, I need you to go to the website right now and get their merch, ivymultimediashop.com, ivymultimediashop.com. We got the hoodies, the tees, the masks. I'm adding some more apparel as well. So check out the website and get your outfits together for the fall, ivymultimediashop.com. Also, check out the website, verballyeffective.com. You can see previous episodes. We have about 182 of them. Maybe a little more, but check it out right now. Subscribe on YouTube, Ina Esco channel, ENAESCO. Follow me as well on all social media platforms. And I also want to send a huge shout out to the Consortium MMT Talent Development Center for allowing me to podcast in this space. I'm really excited today because I have a cool ass creative with me. I can't say ass because he's holy. No, he's not. Hey, he is the special projects assistant to the senior pastor over there at Hope Church Memphis. I know you guys have heard of Hope Church Memphis, right? And he is also an emerging star with the Consortium MMT. I'm talking about Jeff Trotter. Hello, Jeff. How are you?
I'm good.
How you doing, Pastor?
Oh, man, I'm not a pastor, man. I'm not a pastor.
I'm just teasing. Thank you so much for joining me today, Jeff. It is indeed a pleasure. I want to start at the beginning because I know you're not from Memphis, Jeff.
No.
Where are you originally from?
I am an ATLian. I'm from Atlanta by way of College Park, to be exact.
Like the one, College Park T.I. be talking about, College Park.
South side with an F. You know what I mean? Shout out to the whole hood. They know what I mean when I say South side with an F.
Yes. Tell me about growing up out there.
Man, yeah. You know, the standard for me was set so high. My brother actually went to high school with Andre and Big Boy at Tri-Cities High School. So those were my beginnings. You know, as my brother was 10 years older than me, I'm younger looking at him in singing groups and talent shows with Outkast, Escape. Shout out to Candy Burris, man. I love Candy. She's like a sister. I do too. That's big sis. You know what I mean? Like, I see so much of my sister, you know, in Candy and vice versa, man. That around the way girl, just cool homegirl vibe, you know, just kick it, you know what I mean?
But she is a businesswoman from
Yeah.
Oh,
she is a tycoon,
did you know that back then?
Well, Candy was always about her business, man. Mm-hmm. Even at 15, 16 years old, she writing songs, she shaking and moving. I remember doing the Black Expo, going to see them at the Black Expo, her and Tiny and Tamika and Latasha. You know, so those were my early beginnings, watching them. Jagged Edge, Richard Ringo. Shout out to Richard, man. You know what I mean? Richard, love you, dog. I know my condolences from the Trotter family. You know what I mean? To you, I know you just lost your father, man. Shout out to Richard Wingo Dollar, Jagged Edge. But these are people that I grew up watching as a kid. So as far as getting out there and running and putting your best foot forward, I ain't had no choice.
Yes.
I ain't had no choice.
Wow. And tell me about your family dynamic growing up. Are you an only child? You have siblings?
Oh, no.
Tell me about it.
No. Yeah, man, my parents actually got married as teenagers. My mom and dad. My dad was 17 years old when he got married.
Seriously?
To my mother. Yeah.
Oh, he knew she was the one, didn't he?
Well, they were having babies real quick. It was 6 of us. So I'm one of 6.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm one of 6. I'm next to the youngest, but I just lost my sister last August.
I'm so sorry.
But, you know, I feel like it's not the end. It's more like to be continued. But, yeah, it was 6 of us. I'm not going to go through all the names, but, you know, I learned a lot. I was blessed to get to learn from all of their mistakes. You know,
that's what I was gonna say. Like usually when you're one of the younger ones, you kind of, you really kind of have like a big gumbo of all of your older siblings as well, right?
For sure. Especially with the music influence, the arts. Tri-Cities High School was the #1 performing arts high school in Atlanta. I know Keenan Thompson from them being in YEA, doing youth entertainment and arts. They used to put on plays and skits and things like that. Like I said, Jagged Edge. You go to a talent show and see 112. You turn around and see Chris Tucker actually hosting the event. You know what I mean? You see all this stuff. You don't know what's going on in front of you. This is black excellence. All this stuff coming together in front of you. But I didn't know at the time what was being built.
Now, were you into music back then as a young Jeff Trotter?
I always had a love for music, but my first love was basketball.
Really? Oh, you hooping?
Yeah, man. I played a little ball. I played in college. Played at Robert Morris University up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. They're a low mid-major Division I school. But I gotta be honest and say, basketball didn't really grow for me from a dream into a reality until I got to Memphis.
Really?
Memphis is one of the few basketball cities in the South. At the time when I was growing up, Georgia, Florida, Alabama was more football territory. But when I got to Memphis, man, these dudes hoop on a whole nother level. They, you might get in a fight or get killed over the hoop. You know what I mean? Like, they are serious about their basketball. And I bumped into Penny Hardaway here, and he started training me. And Scotty Mason used to be a trainer for the Grizzlies. Jeremy Hunt used to play for University of Memphis. Was my best man in my wedding. He's working with the University of Memphis Tigers right now. When those guys took me in,
Jeremy.
Yeah, that's my guy. That's my brother. You know what I mean? When those guys took me in and started training me, like, that's when I started getting calls from NBA general managers and getting tryouts and things like that. I was practicing with the Grizzlies.
Oh, you hooping for real?
Not now. That was past tense.
Okay, so did you segue into an NBA career?
I did not make it to the NBA. So after practicing with the Grizzlies, I signed a contract to go to the NBA Developmental League, and I fractured my ankle while I was there. Yeah, and that was tough.
I know it was. How did it happen? I know you can remember it like it was yesterday. What happened to that ankle?
Well, I had ankle problems stemming from high school, where I was playing around one of my friends, and I jumped up for the ball. A guy kind of bridged my legs, and I fell and I broke it. I fractured it then. Took a lot of rehab to get back right for me to make it through college, but always having a little ache and pain in it. But you'll go get treatment before practice, treatment after practice. And a lot of people don't understand when you're a kid playing basketball, a lot of these kids are starting off in elementary school. By the time you get to the NBA, you've put in well over 10,000 hours in your craft.
Look, let's talk about AAU. Yeah. It's such a big business now. My son, my 16-year-old, we've been ripping and running with this AAU. What do you think about that element of it, the AAU piece of it? Do you think that's good or bad for the kid?
I think that...
Or what do you think about it?
In my opinion, they need to scale back. I understand the AAU circuit. And a lot of the AAU circuits are controlled by bigger businesses like Under Armour, Nike, and Adidas. They have their own tournaments and things that you have to be a part of. They have their own sponsorships because they're trying to build their brand. So the earlier I find you as a talent and I have you wearing my brand, the more chance I have of landing you as a endorsement, as a client later on. So that's why you can see pictures of Trae Young, at 10 years old at a camp somewhere, with Blake Griffin or whatever. And then you turn around and see him later on in middle school or high school. He's got pictures with Kevin Durant. And then you turn around and he's actually playing side by side with LeBron James. You're like, man, it's almost like they knew, man. They are farming these guys and they are watching you. If your team is winning, you could get a sponsorship and they will put your team in the jerseys because the likelihood of the next LeBron James or the next Kyrie Irving or whatever is high if you're winning. But if you lose, they will take that scholarship, they will take that sponsorship away from that coach and that team.
That's sad.
So they milking these kids, you know what I mean? But that's the game.
But see, they milking the kids. However, now NBA, they can get money for endorsements now in the, NCAA, correct?
I don't know. And that's that rules just passed. I haven't been abreast to it.
It just changed.
Man, well, that's great because I actually wrote an article when I was at Robert Morris University to my professors and to the NCAA clearinghouse fighting for compensation for athletes because as a student athlete, you're not much of a student as much as you are an athlete that is working and should be on payroll for the school. If you think about it, what happens to the city of Memphis right now if the University of Memphis has a successful basketball season and we win a championship? You winning games, small businesses are gaining more money and revenue because everybody's coming to their businesses to watch the game. You might even name a sandwich after one of the players on the team.
Oh, you know it's going down. I mean? It changed. You're going to get a whole
the athletes
ballot.
don't get any of that.
They do now.
You know, you got radio contracts, you got shoe endorsements, you have sports beverages and drinks associated. You get all type of contracts around the sport for these young black guys that are playing, but they don't get anything. You don't even have enough money to go wash your clothes, you know what I mean, or take your girl out on a date to the movies. Yeah.
But look, your article, their paper that you wrote must have worked because things have changed in the NCAA.
Shout out to Big Guy. Yeah, thank you, Lord.
Shout out to Jeff Trotter.
Yeah, shout out to the homies, man. Hey,
wow.
y'all go get it.
Okay, let me ask you this. What made you move to Memphis, Jeff?
Oh, well, after finishing college at Robert Morris, I was looking for what was next. What's that next season of life? I had an older brother that was here, and I was on the phone with him late one night. I had been in the gym playing basketball, and I was just frustrated. You know, I hit rock bottom, and I lashed out, and I was talking to my brother on the phone, just venting, just venting my frustrations with him. And he told me about the Memphis Athletic Ministries. He knew that I love ball, and I had a heart for kids and compassion for, you know, just community development and giving back. And he's like, man, I think this might be a good fit for you to, you know, you can, you know, mentor some young kids, you know, play ball with them, teach them how to play, and whoop, whoop. And I said, they gonna pay me to play basketball with some kids? I was like, sign me
I'm
up.
in.
You know what I mean? I'm like, hey, if you ain't in the league, that's one of the, you know, that's a good second.
Had you ever been to Memphis prior to making the decision to come?
I used to visit him. I used to come visit him from time to time, and I was actually visiting Lecrae in the studio. So this is like 2008, you know, and Lecrae was Lecrae was this big, tall, goofy dude with these thick Coke bottle glasses and acne. And he's like, man, I told these people I wanted to start rapping, and the Lord just started providing these different things, and he's showing me these interfaces and microphones and headphones and things that I had no idea what it was. I'm like, yeah, man, that's great. And he was all excited about what he was doing, but I had no idea that he was going to become Lecrae, you know what I mean? And so I used to visit my brother in Lecrae in the studio in Binghampton. He started in Binghampton. A lot of people don't know that.
I didn't know that.
Well, he's from Houston, Texas, but he started his music career with Reach Records, and really the start of it was here in Memphis. That's a huge part of his core fan base being here.
Wow.
Yeah. But
and you made it to Memphis.
Yeah, I made it to Memphis to come work for the Memphis Athletic Ministries. I loved it. Ended up doing it for about 7 years. And through those 7 years, I worked at about 12 different facilities around the city of Memphis.
With the program?
With ma'am, yeah. So at Greenlaw and Beth LaBelle over in Orange Mound. I worked at the Salvation Army Kroc Center. I worked at the Memphis Grizzly Center, who shout out to NBA Cares, who donated the Grizzly Center to us with ma'am. And multiple gyms. And if you're faithful, if you do what you're supposed to do at each one of those gyms, you got little homies in some of every hood now. You know what I mean? And man, yeah, I got little brothers everywhere, and I'm blessed. Yeah, you know, for a while I was frustrated, like, man, y'all taking me away from my kids, and now I have to go to another gym. But God tapped me on my shoulder, as He often does, and He's like, whose kids are those? They're my kids.
Okay.
So I just need you to humble yourself and do what you're supposed to do wherever I put you. If anything, you should be honored that I would use you in such a time as this. If you realize how much time the kids spend at school and then after school programs, who really raising them kids? They wake up in the morning at 6:30, 7 o'clock, and they at school all day. And then they'll come to the after school program and stay there until 8, 9 o'clock at night, and y'all dropping them off, feeding them meals and everything. And then they come on the weekends too. And if you one of those good coaches, you trying to take them along with you to go to church, man, y'all need to get this word, come on, hop in this car. So, other coaches that go above and beyond, they were doing it, and it's like you raising other people's kids all over the city of Memphis. Mm-hmm. So instead of complaining about moving from gym to gym, I had to say, God, I'm going to count it as a joy and understand the assignment. You know how they say you got to understand the assignment.
Understand the assignment. You did. Now, what caused your departure with MAM?
I felt like it was just time to go. The winds of change were blowing. There wasn't much room for me to grow into another position there. And I feel like I learned a lot, gained a lot from the experience. But MAM is what they consider a parachurch ministry. It wasn't directly affiliated with the church. And God is funny. I'm learning in the parachurch ministry in the hood, but then I started working with some brothers in a more suburban area out in Germantown and Collierville, where I was learning with them. So I'm learning from a predominantly white setting. I'm learning in the hood in a predominantly black setting. And then God moves me to Hope Church, where it's the largest multi-ethnic church in Memphis, Tennessee. And like I said earlier, the largest Presbyterian church in America. So I really feel like God had me on a trajectory for what he was doing as far as racial reconciliation, especially here in Memphis, Tennessee. I'll say it again, especially here in Memphis, Tennessee. Because everybody knows what went on with Dr. King here.
Exactly.
At least once a year, everybody's going to turn their eyes to Memphis, Tennessee, and we're going to pay homage and respect and look at the National Civil Rights Museum. So what's crazy, and I was kind of telling you this early before we got the cameras rolling, with me being from Atlanta, my parents actually have some history with the King family. So my mom has been in situations with Bernice King, and my great-grandfather, who I'm named after, his name was Jeff. My granddaddy's Jeff. My uncle's Jeff. You find a good thing, you stick with it, right? And I'm Jeff. Well, my great-grandfather, he was the product between a slave owner, an Irish slave owner, and one of the slaves, my great-grandmother. And that's where I get my light-skinned gene from, And I went back one day just kind of discouraged with doing ministry in Memphis. You losing kids left and right. Things, just got rough. So I went home to take a break. And I said, you know what, I'm here, I'm in town. I'm going to take some time to pay homage and pay respect to my grandfather's grave. So I go and I look at the tombstone. It say November 16th. I said, I looked at my granddaddy's. It say November 18th. I said, my birthday is November 19th. And I said, well, God, a lot of times you do things outside of our tunnel vision. You do things and communicate things through generations and bloodlines. What were you doing with our family back here? Well, my granddaddy actually planted this church. I went and I looked. I said, well, when my granddaddy, when his father passed, he didn't have children with his wife. He had children with the slave. And by law, your money, your property goes to the oldest child on the list. So my granddaddy inherited this land. They built a church called Rocky Mount Baptist Church on that land, and he was doing ministry in that area with Dr. King's grandparents. Wow. They are buried on that property to this day. So in my low moment when I'm discouraged and I go back and I'm digging through this history, listening to stories from my uncle and from my mom, I take that as motivation, saying, God, well, I didn't think I would leave Atlanta to come to Memphis, but isn't it ironic in your sovereignty that this is our family heritage, our legacy, and then I turn around and Dr. King dies performing the Poor People's Campaign, and I cut my teeth in ministry in Memphis. He was always about the unity of his church and always about the marginalized and the oppressed. He has a heart for people. So, like, for me to come here and serve, Memphis was voted in 2018 as the second poorest city in America. That was before the pandemic.
They've been number one in poverty for so long.
Yes. So imagine where we are now, right? So I'm like, man, King went out on the Poor People's Campaign. And I'm like, our families had some ties there. So then I go from that to bouncing around all of these gyms, learning in the hood, from North Memphis to South Memphis, and then learning in the suburban areas in Germantown and Collierville to coming to the most multi-ethnic church here in Memphis. And I feel like God has called me to fight for the unity of his people.
Now, what do you do as special projects assistant over there at Hope?
Yeah, so my main project right now is to start a business apprenticeship program. It's called Prolifix. Prolific just being the term for somebody that's highly productive and highly fruitful. If you're a prolific songwriter like Brandon Lewis, you can pump out 3 to 5 songs in a day. You know what I mean? And so Prolifix is a business apprenticeship program trying to bridge the gap between that millennial class and, that Generation X and some of those baby boomers.
They need a bridge.
Yeah, they need a bridge. Yes. Because I'm going to tell you why we're losing a lot of the millennials. The church is, anyway. They're losing a lot of millennials because there was a gospel that was being preached as far as right thinking about God, but we saw some errant actions. There was a lot of talk and explanation, but not enough demonstration. So when we saw the civil unrest or things that we couldn't understand politically, instead of having conversations about these things and walking with somebody and sharing perspective and counter perspective, it was almost like the conversation gets shut down. And people don't know how to have enough patience and grace with one another to actually work through those things and process. So there's a group of millennials that are looking for answers, and not just from your mouth, but in the way that you move your hands and your feet. And when people don't see that and they see hypocrisy, they get confused. And a lot of my friends are doing what they call deconstructing their faith. And for anybody out there that's listening to this and you feel like you've been running away from the church, not running away from God, but kind of just turned off to the church, if you're going to deconstruct your faith, I need you to reconstruct it. Don't just leave it in shambles. And understand that you can eat the meat and spit out the bones. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's certain pillars and certain fundamentals that need to be kept. If I'm going to deconstruct this building right now, there's certain things I can't move in the foundation, or the whole thing is going to collapse. But there may be some walls or some tiles or some things that we need to replace, some pipes that need to be replaced that maybe have burst or have rust in it or mold somewhere. You know what I mean? You don't want to get rid of the whole thing. So if you're going to deconstruct it, make sure you reconstruct it and make sure you keep the fundamental things there and don't lose sight of that.
This is what I want to know. When you start in your church?
Man, I to be straight up and honest with you, because I only know how to shoot straight from the hip. As far as starting the church, I don't feel like I've been called to start a church. Okay. But I am wrestling with the fact that how do I make the most impact in this time and in my generation before my breath is gone? Is that running politically, like Ariel? Or is that becoming a pastor? Like I'm in line at Hope. I could go to seminary and, I'm learning right now from Pastor Rufus Smith is a guy from Houston, Texas. This man is literally walking Black history. He was the first African-American pastor ordained in the whole Presbyterian denomination. Wow. And God has blessed me to be with him on a daily basis, to have him on a text and call basis, to where if I need him, we can talk, we can process and walk through life together. So I don't necessarily feel like I've been called to plant a church just yet, but I'm wrestling with, if I should plant a church, if I should go into politics. Like, God, what is it that you want me to do? How can I be most effective and to make the deepest impact that I can make? Is it influencing culture through the arts? And that's where I've seen some hardwired things, and that's where I've been leaning towards, is using those gifts effectively to make impact. So I don't know about the church thing just yet. My dad planted a church, though. Shout out to Purpose Church in Atlanta. My dad just planted a church out there. So if you're in the Atlanta area, man, follow us on Instagram. I'll throw some, information about Purpose Church out there. But my daddy is a triple OG, man. He loves the Lord. He walk it out, And he loved my ignorant behind through a bunch of crap.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Now, at what point in your life did you join the Consortium and was an emerging star?
Yeah. I believe it was 2017. It was right after the Brian Banks movie. I came through the Consortium. To be honest, I don't even know how I got word about it. A friend of mine that saw me at a local show. I was doing local shows all through the Mid-South at different churches and events and nonprofits, and a girl told me about it, named Laura. And I looked it up, reached out to Fenton Wright at the time, came and went through, heard David Porter, and his resume was impeccable, 350 million records sold, and, Stax Records and Isaac Hayes and this, that, and other. And I was like, you know what, I'm from Atlanta, and I need to come here and take advantage of the things that some people may take for granted, because if this was in Atlanta, and maybe I shouldn't be saying this, so
say
forgive me now that I'm already through the program that I'm saying this. But if this was in Atlanta and you had, let's just say, Andre 3000, and Andre hasn't sold 350 million records. You know, they went double diamond with Speaker Box and Love Below, but they got some impressive records, but not 350 million. I'm sorry. But if this was in Atlanta, you would get charged an arm and a leg to go through a program with the caliber of teaching that you are getting from the Consortium MMT program,
right,
that you get from David and his his comrades, his counterparts. Like, he has so many people in the industry that he pulls in. Brandon knows so much about the game. Walter, when I went through Walter, Person was a guy that knew a lot about the game. So many other people, but you will be charged an arm and a leg for what you're getting. So please, 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 if you're listening, you're an aspiring artist, up-and-coming artist, man, take advantage of this program.
What did you learn from the program?
I learned that music and movement go hand in hand. I learned that sometimes people feel a song because you feel a song, and the content of that song really means something to you. I learned that you can have infectious energy, and your energy can mean all the difference on the song that make people feel it. I learned that music, like as far as the content and the melody, can be married in the same household. The content and the melody, it needs to be married. They can just groove together, and they just do something to your soul. And they specialize in soul music, substance music. So David doesn't like a bunch of cussing and a bunch of empty stuff. You know what I mean? But they love soul music, something with a message that's going to speak to your head and your heart. You know what I mean? So those are a few things. I can't keep going on and on because I'm going to give y'all all of the sauce, you know what I mean, in the program. So if you want to know more, sign up, man.
Wow. Okay, so with that being said, you're an emerging star. Tell me about your repertoire with music. How would you describe your style, your flavor, your music?
Initially I was afraid of comparisons. I didn't want comparisons. But if you make music long enough, you'll realize that everybody sounds like somebody. Everybody has an influence. You know, you're an offspring of somebody else. You know, Michael Jackson was an offspring of James Brown. You know, it's so many artists that has, you know, all these influences that you could trace and go back. So some of my earliest influences, obviously, Outkast. Like I said, my brother went to high school with Outkast. They blew up in the area, so I studied Andre and Big Boy a lot. T.I., you know, I like T.I. I don't know how many times I heard I sound like T.I., I look like T.I. But at the same time, I done heard every light-skinned dude you could think of, you know. Be clear. Did my daddy house. I been running things since I was 15. You just getting over. Look.
I see it now.
No, but I like Tip. You know what I mean? I appreciate his penmanship. You know, and all the big words that he likes to use to show off his boisterous vocabulary. You know what I mean? He has a plethora of words to use on his podcast, Expeditiously.
Expeditiously.
You know? But now, Big Boy Andre, love Tip.
I think I was hearing some rumblings about Andre and Big Boy coming out with something soon.
I don't know. You know, Andre is a rather interesting, eclectic and interesting individual. And I listened to him in an interview one time, and they were saying, man, how come you aren't making music anymore? What are you doing? And this, that, and another. And he was like, man, you ever seen the kid in his room playing with his toys? And he's got this whole world created in his mind. You know, you got a G.I. Joe and a Barbie doll. You trying to save the damsel in distress, and you got pillows, and it's a mountain, and you fighting. You making all this noise in your room, right? And your mom looking like, is somebody else in there with you? And then all of a sudden, everybody comes into the room, and you get stage fright. It's like, oh, snap. Like, everybody's expecting me to do this thing. I was just having fun. Like, in the trenches at the bottom, you know, with the Dungeon family with Rico Wade. Shout out to Rico. I know Rico. You know what I mean? It was them just having fun and creating music with their partners. But as it took a worldwide, like, global platform, you go double diamond, as I mentioned earlier. Now everybody's expecting you to top that. What can I do to top double diamond? You know what I mean? So he had to find some other type of muse and set some other goals in his mind. And that's why he tries to do other things. He was getting into fashion for a while. You see him on the cover of GQ magazine. He diversified his portfolio. He's got his hand in a lot of different things. Andre had his own cartoon, Mr. 3000.
He was real busy at one point.
Idlewild, you know, the movie / musical. You know what I mean? So he was trying a lot of different things, but yeah, I'm sorry. I went on a tangent there about Dre. But I love Andre, man. That's one of my influences.
Wow. Now, what do you say would be the biggest differences you see as an artist between the Atlanta music scene versus the Memphis scene, since you've delved into both?
I give you two things. I tell people all the time, Atlanta taught me how to hustle. Atlanta taught me how to hustle. Memphis teaches me how to stay hungry. You know, in Atlanta, you got to show up. Your pull-up game got to be strong. If you networking, shaking hands, smiling, come to these places, you got to show up, man. And they going to want to network and take pictures with you. We going to, swap information, swap stuff. They going to be hustling and bustling. And they going to show you how to do things by the books so you can make sure that your things are protected, your intellectual property is protected, and so on and so forth. And they're going to work together. So the first thing, Atlanta taught me how to hustle. Memphis taught me how to stay hungry. Like we said earlier, one of the most impoverished cities in America. And I admire some of the guys. Even though I may not agree with the messages, I admire, their grind to stay hungry and to keep going out of whatever situation they in, But one of the biggest differences that I notice right now is in Atlanta, all of those guys are like working with each other. You don't hear a lot about rap beef. Even when they had that King Von situation and some stuff that popped off in Atlanta, Tip caught a lot of backlash because he said, hey, man, y'all don't bring that to Atlanta. Y'all don't bring that. We don't do that here. Because everybody understand we don't have a crab in the barrel syndrome in Atlanta. Yeah.
I always hear that about Atlanta.
Yeah, you gonna see different producers trying to collab. Zaytoven is gonna collab with whoever, and this person and that person, and you got so many artists that are trying to work together to build something because they realize there's enough money out there for everybody. But in Memphis, they were a little behind the curve. A lot of the talent from Memphis used to go to Atlanta to get on, but you still see this competitiveness and almost like a crab in the barrel syndrome where people kind of dish you in the media and you hate on one another. In Atlanta, you go to the club, Future gonna have a section, T.I. gonna have a section, they gonna turn up. Jeezy song gonna come on, they gonna buy him a bottle, Jeezy gonna be turning up. And then Gucci might come in later and they gonna laugh and kick. Everybody's having a great time. In Memphis, you still got these beefs.
You're
where
not
people
even going to see them in the same club.
You scared to even go to the club. And then mom might get shut up. Yeah, so that's the biggest difference that I see.
I heard you mention Zaytoven, the producer. I've been seeing him do a lot of work with Country Wayne lately. Yeah. I just heard a Breakfast Club interview about Country Wayne. And really, when you think about his journey, he was kind of had a spiritual, his message is spiritual. Even though he's funny, at the same time, it's deeply rooted in a spiritual reality.
Yeah, man.
And it's enjoyable to watch him and Zaytoven work together.
Yeah. They go back and forth. Zay had his roots in the church.
Did he?
Yeah, he did a project with my boy Lecrae right before this called Let the Trap Say Amen.
Right.
It's like dudes in the trap need Jesus too. Y'all won't let them in the church. You know what I mean? Like, so we're going to take the church to the trap. Like, what you mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, they need God just like anybody else. So don't shun them just because they made some different decisions and choices than you have.
Amen.
When they backs were against the wall. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, anybody can be redeemed from any situation. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
But Zay had some roots in the church. Country Wayne, you can tell his roots in the South in the church. He funny, man.
He is hilarious.
I love this whole phenomenon of comedians and stuff, putting out songs like Lil Duval.
Yes.
And,
living my best life.
Yeah, Chocolate Drop. Is it Chocolate Drop from Kevin Hart? Chocolate Drop?
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's funny. It's hilarious. So, yeah, shout out to them guys.
Wow.
Man.
Now, you know what I want to talk about, Jeff? I want to talk about Bend Dxnt Break. You shot me an email, and I read your email, and I saw on the signature, Bend Dxnt Break on IG. I went to Bend Dxnt Break. I said, dang, what Jeff over here doing on IG? Look at his following. What he got going on Bend Dxnt Break? I want you to tell the Verbally Effective audience about the whole concept behind Bend Dxnt Break and, everything that was behind it.
Yeah, the past 2 years have been tough to say the least. We've been in some strange and unusual times. And I tell people all the time, it's not the size of the load that you carry that'll crush you. It's how you carry it. So bend your knees and pray. Don't break down or lose hope. And that's the message, just to not give up. It's a message of stick-to-itiveness. It's a message of perseverance and resilience in the time where we've seen a lot of people lose loved ones. And we live in a council culture, right? So not even just death, but you losing close friends over he say, she say, or being politically correct or whatever. You know, so Bend Don't Break can apply in so many different forms and walks of life. You know what I mean? Even if it's in your marriage. You know, we seen domestic violence rates skyrocket through the roof, you know, during this pandemic and quarantining and stuff. It's so many different issues. But for me, I was speaking more specifically towards mental health. Just don't break down and give up, you know, that there is hope. And for me, that hope is Jesus Christ. You know, I read my Bible, I look in there, and that word washes over my mind like nothing else can. It washes over my soul. It helps me to have a peace in my heart and in my mind at night when I lay my head down on the pillow. You know, last year, in August, I lost my sister. It was one of the toughest moments that I ever went through. My sister was my mentor, my nurse, my teacher, my best friend, my confidant, you know. And that message of Bend Don't Break was resounding in my ear. And what was crazy is the same message that I was using to influence and encourage other people was the same message God was giving back to me in my lowest moment. That's the difference between the message and Bend Don't Break as a brand and, you know, some of the other people in the market like Nike and Adidas and some of these other folks, is that the message of Bend Don't Break speaks louder to you in your lowest and your darkest moments. And that's the thing that I love about it. So I was getting feedback on social media, what you saw, when people going through all types of trauma. You know, one girl, man, I just lost my mother and I'm going through this. Somebody else, I'm going through a domestic violence situation with my spouse and da-da-da-da. And they were giving me feedback, just commenting on the pictures and the stuff with the merch. And I was like, yo, this is bigger than me. It's bigger than me. So I just kept feeding fuel to the fire.
So you got the merch line. Tell me about how this merch line is different, though. Actually, sports.
Yeah, so it's an athletic apparel brand. I was looking for something that I could do alongside my wife. My wife is amazing, to say the least, but she's a young tycoon. She's been ripping and running. I said, God, I don't want to be running in two different directions where I'm going to the left and my wife is going to the right, doing some great things, but how can we effectively make change and impact in the world together? My wife is, I got to brag on her real quick, so excuse me, but she's a registered nurse, a registered dietitian, a registered yoga instructor, and she's also getting her doctorate as a psychiatric nurse practitioner.
Go, wifey.
Man, she is something else. And so as far as the service side, she is really adamant about breaking through solid ground in the lane of mental health and working with eating disorders, and she makes that type of care accessible for us when we didn't have that accessibility because of finances. Usually, you know, when I was young, I used to think eating disorder, I would think a skinny, affluent white female. Or if I thought about anxiety, this may sound funny, but I think, oh, the girl that's scared to go to the prom and get stood up, that's anxiety. I had no context for it. Yeah, I had no context for it, you know, as an adult. But you know, we don't talk about eating disorders with black males. A lot of guys will binge, drink, and smoke, and after they smoke, they go binge out on some food after that.
You know what? I never do relate that to men.
We don't, because men are taught to hide their feelings. It's soft for you to be in your feelings. And it's crazy because feelings are like a light on the dashboard of a car. Now, if you can envision this, you know, what happens when a light comes on your dashboard and you ignore it? It's saying you need oil.
It's gonna break down.
Right. The oil is the lifeblood of that vehicle. If you ignore that light and you don't get oil in that car, it's going to lock up and break down. So it'll be foolish for me to ignore my feelings and act like I don't have feelings. If one of these lights fall right now, help me. The light falls on me and I get a laceration and I'm bleeding profusely. You're going to be like, man, are you all right? Let's get you some help. I would be foolish if I sit here and say, nah, I'm straight.
Right.
I'm good. No, I'm good. Hold up, I'm good. He like, bro, you sure you look, you're turning pale on me, bro.
Your
you
arm about to fall off.
You need some help. So we need healing. There are people that will come into a room, and though not visibly bleeding, they are bleeding internally. And you can tell because of the interaction you have with them. Something off with that person. Like, he got some issues. Or they got some stuff, you know. Oh, yeah, he just talked long like that. The person just threw up on you, and they don't even know him. They just threw up their whole life story on you and talked to you for like an hour and a half straight, and you just met the person. You're like, all right, bro, you might need to get some help with that.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it'll be foolish for us to ignore those feelings. There are certain needs. I'll just give you a couple of them with anger. Anger isn't a bad thing. If I'm angry about something, it lets me know that I'm passionate about it. You know what I mean? But anger in a toxic state would look like rage and domestic violence. But at the same time, if you take that same anger and turn it into passion for your spouse, then maybe, you know what I mean, y'all lighting the fire at night, you know what I mean? Y'all making some babies or whatever. You know, that anger can be good or bad. It's a lot of good things that you can do with fire. You can warm a house with a fire, but you can also burn down a house with a fire. Burn down multiple houses with a fire. You know what I mean? As far as fear should lead you to the place where you know that you're going to find safety. It should move you to operate in your faith and in wisdom versus
running away from
anxiety and depression and just being so freaked out that you're paralyzed. You know what I mean? Another one, let's just go with shame. As far as shame, like, let's just say you're an athlete, like I play basketball or you're a football player, and you make a fumble. Well, that fumble should cause you to have a certain level of humility and understanding. Man, I let my team down. I'm shamed right now because I publicly made this mistake in front of all these thousands or even millions of people, and I'm shamed. In that moment, what you need is empathy and forgiveness. It's all right, man. We all make mistakes. Come on, bro. You got the next one. Let's go. You got to have a short dealing, a short checks and balances with that. You got to have a short-term memory with making those mistakes and feeling that shame and understand this should keep you at a humble state.
Have you always felt like this? Or this is something?
Oh, no. This has been evolving my whole life. I'm learning more and more as I go.
Gotcha.
No. Before, with shame, it would turn into toxic shame, right? Where that shame beats you up so bad, what do? You turn to drinking. You turn to, over-sexualizing relationships with different women or different men or whoever, you know what I mean? Or you know, some people chain smoke, like I said, or drink and all type of stuff. You run to your vices. So many people, you got different vices. And it's crazy because people get judgmental about those vices when all of us have vices in some way.
Dealing with something.
Whether it's workaholism or you can turn to your kids and make your kids an idol where you pour so much into your kids that you forget about your husband because you're trying to cope and deal with something. So everybody turns to something in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And for me, you know, like you say, I work at Hope Church. I'm not Pastor Jeff, but I understand.
I'm about to say, Pastor Trotter.
I'm not, at least I don't know. Maybe God calling me to be a pastor or whatever. And
I hear a little calling. You hear that? Y'all hear that?
Man, I was going to say, it's a God-sized hole in a vacuum that can only be filled by God. You're going to be constantly turning to different things.
Hey, be ready when he calls, okay? I think you still trying to figure it out, but I know that, you know, he's already texted you, okay?
All right, I hear you, sir.
He's already texted you. Okay, with that being said, where you trying to take Bend Dxnt Break? Because I can feel like all of this is really going somewhere, like on a bigger platform.
Well, yeah, I wanted to be the next big athletic apparel brand. Like I said, no different than Nike, Adidas, and Puma. Now, I've been talking to some folks, and they say, would you consider partnering with them? Maybe. If the numbers make sense, then maybe.
The numbers make sense.
Right. But I wanted something for us. Like I said, my wife is a yoga instructor, so I make sports bras and yoga pants and things of that nature, you know, T-shirts. We both played college basketball, so we love basketball shorts and T-shirts and things of that nature. So, you know, that's on the product side. But on the foundation side, I want to attack mental health and really helping guys that have been dealing with recidivism and things like that. Yeah. Nice.
Now, this is my last question to you, Jeff. Why Memphis? Why do you choose to stay here?
I told you before about the platform that we have to speak to the world. The whole world turns their eyes towards Memphis. I feel like God has called me to man, fight for the unity of his people. At the end of the day, God created us, and we all his children in one way or another, whether you know it or not. You know what I mean? And he wants his children back. He wants his family to be together. God is our Father. We're not bastards running around with here without a loving Father. Sometimes people have an idea of God as, the big God or the big man upstairs. But he knows your name. He knows every hair on your head, from the crown of your head to the bottom of your feet. He know you. So I feel like he wants me to fight for the unity of his church. And I feel like there's no better place than in Memphis, Tennessee, and the platform that he's led me to, that I have right now at Hope Church, and some of the efforts that we've been doing here in the city. So to answer your question, why Memphis? I feel like I was born for such a time as this. I believe that it's a calling on my life that supersedes what Jeff wants to do, but it's what I feel like God is leading me to and allowing me to be a part of.
Yeah.
Like, this is so cool. I'm getting to sit here with Ina Esco and have an interview. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't plan this. You know, I didn't plan none of this. So,
and it's amazing to hear your story. I mean, it's really amazing. I can tell, like, I talked with a young lady before. I've sensed a feel for God. I mean, I can tell it's in your DNA.
Man.
Like, real deal. From Jeff to Jeff to Jeff.
Oh, thank you, God.
Yes, yes. Now, how can everybody get in touch with you, Mr. Trotter, Pastor Trotter?
Yeah, if you want to check out the pages, BendDxntBreak.com. Now I spell don't with an X in it. So BendDxntBreak.com. Also, my wife, like I said, Bluff City Health is her private practice. She works with eating disorders. Anybody out there struggling, her site is WhitneyTrotter.com. So Whitney Trotter is TROTTER.com. So hit her page up, man. Y'all follow that. On Instagram, you can follow her at Whitney Trotter RD. And my page is the same, Bend Dxnt Break, on Instagram. So look up Bend Dxnt Break, and you'll see the X pop up.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I really enjoyed you today. Don't ignore that text.
It's an honor.
Don't ignore that text from God, man. Okay?
You know, I do have to apologize, Ina. I should have came bearing gifts. I just
No, you're fine.
I want to tell you I appreciate you, because on the creative side, or even the social activism stuff, like doing all of these things, it is so extremely hard to build a platform like a podcast and do all of those things yourself. So to have you following your passion and having this platform available for other artists and for other influencers out there, it's phenomenal. So I appreciate you and the work that you do. Thank you.
I appreciate that. I need people to hear your voice and hear your story, and I'm praying that they'll be inspired.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you so much, Pastor Trotter. He is really Jeff Trotter. He got the text from the Lord. He is the special projects assistant over there to the senior pastor at Hope Church Memphis. Check out his page, Bend Dxnt Break, the website, the IG. And I really enjoyed him today. And I thank you for joining me on episode 184 of the Verbally Effective Podcast. Yes, we talked to a lot of people from Memphis, but none like Jeff Trotter, right? So I want you all to subscribe to the podcast, verballyeffective.com. Subscribe on YouTube, Instagram, SoundCloud, Amazon Music. We're on all platforms. Thank you once again for joining me today on the Verbally Effective Podcast.